Labeled as the most prolific serial killer in U.S. history by the FBI, Samuel Little's bone-chilling confession led the authorities to a trail of gruesome murders spanning decades, with many victims being overlooked and having their justice delayed. But the question is, how did this man manage to evade the authorities for so long, and what led his twisted mind to commit such heinous acts? Here is the story of Samuel Little, the lurking shadow behind 93 alleged murders. Samuel Little was born on June 7, 1940 in Reynolds, a small town in Georgia with a population of about 1,000 people, most of whom were living below the poverty line. Authorities believe that his mother gave birth to him while serving a prison sentence. He also claimed that his mom was a prostitute in her teens and had abandoned him. Therefore, he grew up living with his grandmother in Lorain, Ohio. Samuel attended the Hawthorne Junior High School in Ohio, but he didn't last long and dropped out due to his poor grades and even worse behavior. This action set him on the path to a life of crime, with the first one being breaking and entering. In 1956, at the age of 16, Samuel was convicted and spent some time in a juvenile detention center. 5 years after this incident, he was sent to an adult prison for breaking into a furniture store in Lorain. In the late 1960s, Samuel moved to Florida to live with his mother, where he worked as a cemetery worker and an ambulance attendant. He claimed that he wanted to travel around, so he began moving from state to state, and his run-ins with the law also increased with time. By 1975, Samuel had been arrested over 26 times across 11 states for various crimes such as fraud, assault, driving under the influence, armed robbery, rape, etc. He claimed to have spent his time in prison learning how to box and wanted to become a prize-fighting boxer, but he never pursued that career path. While he was being charged with these crimes, what the authorities didn't know was his activities were far more sinister. During this time, Samuel would spend most of his days on the streets of various towns and cities scouting his next victim. In 1982, Samuel was arrested in Mississippi for the murder of a 22-year-old girl, Melinda Rose LaPree, who had been missing, but the grand jury in the trial didn't indict him in this case. While he was under investigation in Mississippi, Samuel was taken to Florida, where he was charged with the murder of 26-year-old Patricia Ann. During the trial, witnesses claimed to have seen Samuel with the victim the night before she disappeared. Unfortunately, luck was on his side, and once again he was acquitted as the jury didn't trust the witness testimonies. By 1984, Samuel had escaped 2 murder convictions. Following this, he moved to California, where he was arrested yet again for kidnapping, beating, and strangling 22-year-old Lori Barrows. She managed to survive this attack. A month later, Samuel was found by authorities in the back seat of his car with a woman in the same condition as Lori at the exact location of her attempted murder. This led to Samuel being sentenced to 2.5 years in prison. When he was released in 1987, he almost immediately moved to Los Angeles, where he committed 10 more murders. On September 5th, 2012, Samuel was arrested at a homeless shelter in Louisville, Kentucky for an outstanding drug charge he had. Once detained, he had to go through DNA testing, which linked him to 3 murders: Linda Alford, killed in July 1987, Guadalupe Duarte Apodaca, killed in September 1987, and Audrey Everett, killed in August 1989. Since all 3 women were found on the streets of Los Angeles, Samuel was extradited to the city and charged in January 2013. After a couple of months, authorities stated that he was being investigated for 36 murders dating back to the 1980s. The LaPree murder case from Mississippi was also reopened, and Samuel was thought to be involved in 93 murders across various states. In September 2014, he was tried for the 3 murders, and the prosecution brought forward DNA evidence and multiple witness testimonies of victims attacked by Samuel. This led to the jury finding him guilty, and he was given a life sentence without the possibility of parole. He was serving this sentence at the California State Prison in LA County. After he was convicted, the FBI placed down his details in its Violent Criminal Apprehension Program, which linked his movements throughout the years to a bunch of murders across 19 states. Samuel Little, who had been maintaining his innocence all this time, confessed to his first crime in November 2018 when he admitted to strangling and killing Melissa Thomas in 1996. A few days after this confession, he was charged with the murder of Denise Christie Brothers, who was killed in 1994 in Texas. This indictment came after a Texas Ranger claimed that Samuel had confessed to this murder earlier in the year. He pleaded guilty to this charge and was awarded another life sentence. The Ector County, Texas District Attorney and Wise County, Texas Sheriff's Office announced on November 13, 2018, wherein they stated that Samuel had confessed to over 90 murders across 14 states between the years 1970 and 2005. 2 days later, the Russell County, Alabama District Attorney announced Samuel's admittance of guilt to killing 23-year-old Brenda Alexander in 1979. Her body was found in Phoenix City, Alabama. The next day, sheriffs from Macon, Georgia, claimed that Samuel confessed to strangling an unidentified woman in 1977 and strangling 18-year-old Fredonia Smith in 1982. He also went on to confess to murdering 55-year-old Dorothy Richards in 1982 and 40-year-old Daisy McGuire in 1996. The bodies of both these women were discovered in Houma, Louisiana. On November 19, 2018, the sheriff of Harrison County, Mississippi, stated that Samuel had confessed to strangling and murdering 36-year-old Julia Critchfield in 1978. In the last week of November, many other law enforcement officials from various states claimed that Samuel had confessed to at least 3 other murders in 2005, 1978, and 1982. The FBI announced on November 27th that their team from the Violent Criminal Apprehension Program had confirmed 34 of Samuel's confessions to be accurate and that they were working on confirming the rest. When Little realized he could benefit from helping out the authorities by confessing, he began using his admission of guilt in exchange for a transfer out of the California State Prison. However, he failed in his mission and spent his entire sentence in that place. Moreover, in December, he was indicted for the murder of Linda Sue Boards in 1981, and the authorities also identified one of his victims as Martha Cunningham, who he killed in 1975. In May of the following year, he was indicted by the prosecutors of Cuyahoga County, Ohio, with 4 counts of aggravated murder and 6 counts of kidnapping. He also went on to confess to the murder of a woman in Cleveland and one in Akron. He also stated that he killed 2 women in Cincinnati, one of whom was identified as 33-year-old Anna Stewart, while the other still remains a Jane Doe. He was indicted for these 2 murders in June 2019. By August 2019, the FBI had confirmed at least 60 of Samuel's admissions of guilt to be accurate. In his later years, he claimed that he had hoped the confessions would help acquit those who were wrongly convicted of his crime. He told the CBS News magazine 60 Minutes, quote, "I say if I can help get somebody out of jail, then God might smile a little bit more on me," end quote. Most of Samuel's victims were women who belonged to the social underbelly, like prostitutes, drug addicts, homeless, and women of color. This is the main reason why Samuel managed to evade the authorities for so long. He told the New York Times in an interview, quote, "I never killed no senators or governors or fancy New York journalists, nothing like that," end quote. Another reason he remained undetected is his method of killing was such that oftentimes his victim's cause of death would be attributed to natural causes or drug overdose. He would start by punching his victims and making them unconscious, after which he would strangle them to death. Since there would be no stab or bullet wounds, authorities would not always be able to detect any foul play. In May 2018, a Texas Ranger, James Holland, visited Samuel in hopes of finding some answers to a cold case he was working on from 1994, the murder of Denise Brothers. This led to the beginning of the string of confessions by the notorious serial killer. Upon discovering that Samuel had a talent for drawing, Holland suggested he draw portraits of his victims, which he did. These drawings were also released to the public by the FBI, hoping that someone would come forward to identify the women. As a result, at least one cold case was solved from Akron, Ohio. Even though Samuel didn't recall the exact dates of the murders or what his victims were wearing, he had a pretty good recollection of other details like what they looked like and the color of their hair, etc. Samuel told the New York Times, quote, "I live in my mind now, with my babies," meaning victims, "in my drawings," end quote. Once an intimidating individual standing at 6'3" and weighing more than 200 pounds, by the time Samuel was sentenced to prison, he became wheelchair-bound. In his later life, he suffered from heart problems, diabetes, and other unidentified illnesses. On December 20th, 2020, at the age of 80, he took his last breath at a California hospital while in custody. Even though his cause of death wasn't disclosed to the public, there were no signs of foul play. That ended the story of a cold-blooded murderer who took the lives of many innocent women and deprived them of living their lives to their true potential. To this day, the authorities are trying to confirm the confessions of this serial killer in order to solve cold cases and finally bring his victims to justice. That's all for today's video. If you enjoyed it, give it a like and don't forget to subscribe. Let us know in the comments below what are your thoughts on America's deadliest serial killer.